All right, so this may be one of the most confusing videos I've ever made because apparently now your baby doesn't have a gender and you have to wait until they can choose their gender. They call these theybys. So there's a new movement of theybys where you have a baby and you wait until the child chooses gender. I watched this interview and it was mind-numbing to me. I don't understand it. I can't comprehend it. Like I've been saying, are we in the last days? Decide for yourself. Let's watch this interview together. We're going to react to it here. Piers Morgan, I don't know who this girl is. Good Morning Britain. They interviewed a gender-neutral family that's raising theybys, and basically they let the kids pick what they want to be. But Piers Morgan's, he really hit some good points here on this, and he scratches his head like you're going to be when you watch this. But let's watch this together, and let's see what this interview is about.
I've heard of people who identify as non-binary using the pronoun they or their instead of he or she. But what about this? Having a theyby instead of a baby. It's a new term that some parents are using to show that they're bringing up their offspring gender neutral. It's a very interesting situation. Just tell us a little bit about Sparrow. Are you able to even say how Sparrow was, you know, what gender Sparrow was born, or is that
you can't say anything because you're always wrong when you talk about these topics?
Well, you know, the whole point of gender is that we don't know Sparrow's gender yet. As far as what their anatomy is, we do choose to keep that private, you know, to a short list of caregivers.
Now, this was not the situation, was it, with Hazel, who was your first child? Because Hazel, yes, you did bring up in, you know, as a little girl.
Well, I did assign binary pronouns to Hazel initially, yes. And then when they were older, they articulated a preference for using...
Hold on. This is the thing. You did not assign gender pronouns. The doctor assigns these. When you go to see what your baby's gender is at a gender reveal, or they do the 3D ultrasound. I have 4 kids, so I know this, 4 girls. They do the ultrasound 3D if you want to get it early, and they look between the baby's legs, and based on what's between the baby's legs, they say it's a girl or it's a boy. So already this idea that you get to choose the gender of your child, it's like saying you get to choose where you're born. No baby ever has chosen what family they were born into. They never chose what economic status. They never chose what country they were born into. These are not things you choose. Just like you don't choose gender. You're born male, which I'm going to show you later, or female. This is not being closed-minded. This is science. When you're born, the hospital will say, it's a boy. How do you know? Because there's something between its legs. If the doctors say it's a girl, it's because something's not between its legs. So this idea of like we get to choose our gender or we get to assign gender, I'm sorry to say it, but you didn't choose the gender of your child.
Right, so. Just so I get my head around all this, it's obviously very complicated. Not to you, but it's complicated.
And Piers Morgan's
to me.
confused,
so
like probably many of you.
Just lay this out. Explain your domestic setup. You're married, is that right?
Yes, I'm in a multi-adult family. There's 3 of us that are raising 2 children,
multi-adult family,
an 8-year-old and my 1-year-old.
And how would you describe yourself? You were born biologically male, or how would you describe it?
I'm non-binary. Yeah, I'm non-binary, which means that I don't identify as a man or a woman, and I use they/them pronouns.
Okay, and your wife or partner, is it a wife? How would you describe your other half?
Well, all of the adults in my household identify as transgender or non-binary.
Right, and you're only married to one, or you're married to both?
Legally married to one.
Right.
In a relationship with another.
So the one you're legally married to, what is their name?
Bren.
Bren, and Bren identifies
Piers is
as...
trying to wrap his head around all of it. He's like...
a woman.
A
Uses
woman.
she, her.
And she was born a woman and remains identifying as a woman?
Yeah. Yeah, she's a woman.
Okay, and who's the third member of the setup?
My partner, Luna, who uses they/them pronouns as well.
And Luna is male or female? Or?
Non-binary.
Non-binary. And, okay, but you're not married to Luna?
No.
Okay, and you have 2 children in the house?
Yes.
Okay, and just to clarify again, Sparrow, we don't know whether Sparrow was born male or female because you haven't said that, but Sparrow is now non-binary?
No, Sparrow is, I would say, anti-gender, which is a term, that means before gender. Like, all children,
Anti-gender.
at this age are developmentally not able to really understand gender yet. It's just something that they don't have the understanding for. So it's not that the child is non-binary, it's that the child just doesn't have any gender yet.
Look, let me try and get my head around this.
Obviously, they do have anatomy.
Right, yeah. So what anatomy does Sparrow have?
Well, I mean, that's something that we don't usually discuss unless it's necessary with maybe a medical professional or, a caregiver.
Right. So,
Ari, I just wonder if I can intervene here, because I think that a lot of people find this very confusing.
She plays the mediator in this interview.
And it's because people think that if you are born with biological anatomy that indicates that you're either male or female, then therefore you have that gender identity. You're a man or a woman. But can you explain why you think that isn't helpful, that the anatomy that you are born with biologically shouldn't dictate your identity? Because I think that's the sort of bigger point that your situation is trying to get to, isn't it? That when you're born with certain genitals, society decides how you should act. And as far as I'm trying to understand it, that is what you're railing against. Am I right?
It's not society, it's biology that decides.
Yes, it's a great question and a great
you're
clarification.
Male or female.
What it is that, yes, commonly people born with one type of anatomy will identify with one gender, people with different anatomy will identify with another. But that totally negates the fact that there are legitimately thousands of people all over the world for whom that is not the case.
So what I would say, Ari, just in from that point of view, you're not necessarily dictated to by society. I mean, if you have a little girl and, she's biologically a girl, she can decide and still be a she. This is, I'm putting this to you.
I don't think you can't call her a she, though. Sparrow's not a she,
No,
right?
I know. So let's talk about a different little girl or another child.
We don't know if Sparrow's she or he.
No, that is true. So I'm talking about a little girl whose parents do call her a she. She doesn't necessarily need to, for instance, play with dolls, do cooking lessons and wear pink.
Gender
she just
expression.
Doesn't have to.
Yeah, gender expression is totally different from gender identity. Someone can identify as a boy and, like any color, any toy, sports, dance, pink, blue, whatever. And same with identifying as a girl or non-binary. People's interests or hobbies or preferences don't dictate what their gender is.
When did
Sparrow
Hazel
having a preference?
Yeah, when did Hazel decide that she was no longer going to be a girl?
Hazel decided that they were non-binary when they were about 4. They had...
Okay, 4 years old, they decided that they're non-binary. How does a 4-year-old, this is the question, how does a 4-year-old even know what non-binary means? I'm barely understanding what non-binary is, let alone they said the 4-year-old's able to say, I'm non-binary. And that means I'm not male nor female, I'm just non-binary. I don't choose to be either one, or I'm gender fluid. I get to choose. And the issue is the parents. This is what happens. The parents tell them about non-binary. The parents tell them, you don't have to be a boy. You don't have to be a girl. You could be whatever you want. And this is pushed on. There was just a viral TikTok video of a mom busted because the son said, my mom doesn't care what I am as long as I'm part of the LGBTQIA or something like that. And the point of it is, the parents introduce them to this doctrine, to this idea, and they say, well, we indoctrinate, Christians indoctrinate. We indoctrinate them to what? Love people, feed the poor, help people, be good to humanity. But to indoctrinate your kids to tell them they're non-binary, a 4-year-old does not know. My kids have no clue what non-binary is. I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. They would never know because they're not exposed to it. But when you expose them and you teach them and you tell them they have to choose this non-binary road, that's what happens. And you'll see this in the interview.
I've been exploring gender before that, trying on different pronouns, experimenting with different names. But they picked they, them pronouns and chose the name Hazel when they were 4
Ari,
years
with,
old.
with the greatest of respect, I have a 7-year-old daughter, right? When she was 4 years old, her main decision of the day was whether to watch Peppa Pig or Frozen. She had not a clue what about gender identity or non-binary or any of this stuff. And I put it to you that this wasn't Hazel's idea, was it? This was your idea. You decided that Hazel had gender issues that she needed to address, and you persuaded your daughter
I didn't say it,
that she was no longer to be a girl, didn't she?
I mean, I personally don't agree with that assertion, but I can see how that could be misconstrued. I think that every family environment is unique. And say a child becomes a concert pianist very young, age 6, they're playing Beethoven. Well, maybe is it because their father is a pianist and they had a piano in the home and they explored music.
You can't compare hobby
earlier.
to gender.
Hazel has a unique education because living in an
parents.
LGBT family, they have met people of different gender expressions and have been safe to explore their own gender, which has led them to a personal discovery. Does that mean that I forced them? No, of course not.
Isn't this just utterly exhausting, trying to keep up with all this? I mean, a lot of it, I've got no problem with you leading any life you like. Honestly, I haven't. You're a fully grown adult. You want to call yourself they and non-binary, whatever it is. I have total respect for your rights, frankly, to do whatever you want to do. My issue is what's happening with the kids in your household.
Yes.
And whether actually it's all being driven by the adults in the home and not these children. I mean, Little Sparrow, we don't even know if Little Sparrow is a girl or boy, and you say we now have to call Sparrow they. And Hazel, what does Hazel call Sparrow?
Their baby sibling.
Their baby, so she literally says, good morning, baby sibling.
Well, usually by name, like good morning, Sparrow, but when someone asks, who is that, you say my baby sibling, yeah.
And does Hazel call Sparrow they?
Yes.
They. So she says, they, can I play a game with you? They.
Well, not when talking to them. When talking to them, they would say you.
So
like,
confusing.
would you like to share a cookie with me, Sparrow? And Sparrow would, of course, because they're a baby.
But if I'm in the room and I want to have a cookie and I ask Hazel, can I have a cookie? And she says yes, I'll just ask they, right? Sparrow. Is that how it works?
Them.
I'll ask them.
Ask them.
Yeah, you would say. So Hazel might say, "I'll ask them if they want to share."
Here's what I don't get though, because they and them are plural words, and I've always struggled with this. I don't understand why, in this non-binary world, you would take a plural word like them
I've
or
always
they
wondered this as well.
to describe a
Encompasses both
singular
genders,
entity. It
doesn't
doesn't
it?
make any. I'm a grammatical purist. I don't really understand from a grammatical point
that's
of view
totally reasonable.
why you would call people by plural.
Okay, I'm going to tell you guys why, and this is going to make some of you mad. I already know some of you are going to get mad at this. The reason why it's plural is because it's spirits. Notice what Piers Morgan said. This guy's not a Christian. He said, why would you use a plural word to describe a single entity? And the reason being is because there's not a single entity. These are spirits, personality spirits. Making them think they have multiple personalities and they're this gender. It's called the spirit of confusion. It's like when Jesus came to cast out the demon of the man at the tombs, and he said that for there are many, for we are many. He used the pronoun we because he was speaking of all the spirits that were living on the inside of him, all the other demonic spirits there. This is a spirit of confusion, and there's freedom. And we are selling them short, the world, by not offering them freedom. Have I seen homosexuals get delivered? Absolutely. There's tons of testimonies. You can go on TikTok, you go on the comment section down below, and you're going to see tons of people that were homosexual that got delivered and now are married with children. Now it's confusion. It's a spirit that confuses you about gender. And the sad part is these kids are innocent. They're born into this, and this door gets open because they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. I know it's bold to say, guys, but listen, I'm not going to let Piers Morgan be bolder than me. He's just hitting it right on the head there, saying, like, aren't you exhausted by all this language?
Plural
It's just
titles.
It's plural because it's spirits.
Well, they actually has a history of being used as a singular pronoun as well as a plural pronoun.
No, it doesn't.
Back, hundreds of years ago, 14th
Hundreds of years ago.
century,
No, it
1700s,
doesn't. No, it doesn't.
people
never been
used
used.
they singularly as well. But yeah, in common usage, they does have a plural connotation. We are just working within the limited framework of the pronouns available to us in English.
Yeah.
There are
Ari,
people who use invented pronouns, but those sometimes can be difficult for people to navigate.
Ari, I wonder whether when, because it's complicated for an adult like me to get my head round, and I'm doing my absolute, best to be sensitive and understanding about it, because it's, I think a lot of people find it...
You can tell she's playing the mediator between her and Piers
difficult
Piers
to
Morgan.
understand. When it comes to children, because, if you've got
This should be illegal, really, though, guys?
a child
To
of
tell your
4,
kids what they are.
who's growing up, it must be difficult for them to try and express that to other adults who don't understand your setup and don't understand the situation. And when other adults say, have you got a little brother or a little sister, you know, how does a small child explain that, you know, perhaps to other children that they're at nursery with?
That's a great question. Hazel is very confident, very verbose, and very well-spoken, and they enjoy advocating for the visibility of their family, and they enjoy engaging their peers and adults in conversation.
You just say the wrong word.
Obviously, I've never forced them into a spotlight, and I've told them, you know, that they can always choose to disengage when they don't want to over-explain themselves. But to them, it's pretty simple to say, oh, we don't know Sparrow's gender yet. They're going to tell us when they're older. Right now, we use they, them pronouns.
What happens if Sparrow decides? How old is Sparrow? She's 4 now, right? Or they is 4. They is 4.
Sparrow is 1 year old.
Sparrow. Sorry, I'm sorry. Hazel is 4, and Sparrow is 1.
Hazel is 8.
Okay.
Hazel changed their gender
has been non-binary for 4 years.
Hazel changed her gender at 4, but is now 8, and Sparrow is 1.
Yeah.
Chose her
What
gender at
happens
4.
if Hazel decides tomorrow she would now like to be a girl or a boy? I don't.
Well, then I would support that. Hazel, you know, is totally allowed to continue to explore their gender and have it evolve. You know, gender isn't always a static thing for some people.
And what is Sparrow?
Being
what is
non-binary
Sparrow?
and using they, them is what they want right now.
Okay, and is Sparrow, when she gets to say 3 or even 2, when they can first start to talk, if her first words are, I want to be non-binary, or I want to be a boy, or I want to be a girl, would you just respect anything that a 2-year-old child would say? You accepted a 4-year-old's insistence on changing gender. Would you accept a 2-year-old?
I would accept that that child was exploring. You know, I think that at that age, gender
Ari, a child of 2 is
not
in
set
no.
in
I'm
stone.
sorry to be the stick in the mud here. A 2-year-old
His
kid
co-host is like,
hasn't got a Scooby-Doo about any of this stuff. The idea that you would literally, the idea that you would even,
if my kid said that they wanted to pretend to be Scooby-Doo, I would play along, you know, and follow the child.
The idea that you as a parent would even countenance the idea that a 2-year-old child has any ability to form any serious perception of gender, I think, frankly, I put it to you respectfully, is utterly ridiculous and actually damaging to that child.
Well, then in that
That's
case,
bold.
if a 2-year-old child, as you say, genuinely has
television.
no ability to conceptualize gender, isn't it toxic and bizarre that at 2, we are telling someone, you are a boy because of your anatomy? If that 2-year-old genuinely can't conceptualize what a boy is.
It's what we've been doing for thousands of years.
Doesn't it make more sense that if a 2-year-old genuinely has no ability to process what a gender is, as you said, that I don't, you know, tell them what their gender is, and I don't emphasize gender constantly. I let them be what they are, which is a toddler.
Say you offer structure. What could be more of a structure than actually saying to your child, this is your name and that's your name? And if when you get to be an adult, you want to change your name, then you become your own adult, your own responsibility, you take your own decisions. Part of being a parent is until a child reaches adult age, actually the parent takes these decisions. What are you doing as a parent?
But I guess
as a parent, you're saying just get on with it.
Is that I feel that what you're expressing is a bit of childism, which is assuming that someone has to be a legal adult to have the capacity to know themselves.
Childism is a new
and
one.
I think a child can explore identity.
All right, Ari, I've heard just about every ism imaginable. I've never heard. I've been accused of every ism, and I'm struggling with this new world of isms. Right? What is childism?
You're against children making their own decisions.
I believe that, well, childism is the normalization of the mistreatment of children just because they're young. You know, like assuming that they can't have opinions or ideas, you know, that they can't.
That's what you're
obviously
doing.
They do need guidance and structure, but
what is happening?
Mistreating them or treating them like property or denying their identity and autonomy.
So giving a child a gender because of its anatomy.
It's childism
assuming that they're boy or girl, or giving them a name, all that would be childism from your point of view.
Not giving them, but forcing them to use them regardless of what the child wanted.
So if a 3-year-old child decides, I'm no longer a boy or girl, I'm no longer going to be called Bob, I want to be called Doris, whatever it may be, if a 3-year-old child decides to do that, and I object and say, no, your name is Bob, not Doris, and you're a boy, not a girl, at 3, then I'm guilty of childism.
Potentially, yes.
Okay, hold on. We're not gonna play that video. Hello? My head is spinning as well. Now listen, Piers Morgan hit the nail on the head on so many of these points, but this is mind-numbing to me. And this is the way that the world is going. And again, like he said, do what you want to do, be what you want to be, but don't expect culture and humanity and society to have to adopt these terms and to evolve into this. And this is where we're heading, guys. We're heading into where now we're bigots, now we're haters, now we're this because we don't call a certain pronoun or a certain gender. Listen, I'm not doing it. There's no such thing as a theyby. The baby's born, it's male or female. Let me just give you one verse. I could give you so many, but I'm just gonna give you one here. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. It's easy to get to. It's in the very beginning of your Bible. It's the first chapter. It's where God lays it all out. Are you ready for this? So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. So in your Bible, beginning of creation, God creates male and God creates female. That's it. There's no second gender. There's no thee, they, them, her, she, what, why. It's male and female. When a baby's born, the baby's born either male or female. So this whole gender thing and this whole fluid thing, it's spirits, guys. It's spiritual. Call me crazy, call me hater. I've seen people over and over get delivered, get free. I know many people that were ex-homosexual, ex-transgenders. You can name it over and over, and they've gotten freedom and they've gotten help. And it's available. Let me know what you think down below. It's just gonna get worse, in my opinion. We're gonna be the ones getting censored, called haters for this. And I don't know what's going on with the world right now. Which way are we spinning? We need to pray, guys. We need revival. Comment down below. What do you think about this? Are you using theybys? Are you using these pronouns? Or are you going to revolt against this and say it's male and female? Let me know what you think in the comments. Subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one.